anxious to step through the gate again, Major?
Yes, I am.
We all are.
Would you like us to bring back anything special?
No thanks.
Groceries, new outfit, flatware?
No, just yourselves in one piece, please. Dial it up. You're safe.
Welcome to the Jumping Puddles podcast. Be sure to listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and or YouTube, and follow us at Jumping Puddles Podcast on Tumblr and Instagram, and Jumping Putt Pod on Twitter. And if you want to support our podcast, please check out our coffee. Hi, I'm Sam, and with me are my fellow co-hosts, Tor and Ash.
Hey.
Hi.
When the Atlantis expedition encountered Lucius Lavin, an obnoxious man that seems to have the entire village and Atlantis wrapped around his finger, it's up to Rodney and John to get to the bottom of his unexpected charm.
Dun,
Dun,
dun, dun,
dun,
dun. A dun, dun,
Atrocious,
dun
methinks.
has never been more fitting, however, for an episode.
Yeah.
We have not wanted to start.
Yeah. We've been talking about
Not
the weather
wanna
for like an
start.
hour.
The weather was more fun, you could say.
And less gross.
Certainly.
If you can believe that.
Well, what an episode. How do we even...
I feel kind of bad, but also not. But I feel like maybe it will change during our discussion, but I'm gonna come right out and say I think this might be so far my least favorite episode of Atlantis.
I agree. I wouldn't blame you for feeling that way at all.
I actually... That's valid. I think... Yeah, this episode sucks. But I actually think the tower is still, like, my number one, like, mortal enemy in life.
So funny.
Just because I think this one, at least there's like some humor, and at least like there are like some sprinkle of like funny little bits that I can like latch onto, be like, okay, this is good. But I just wanted to kill everyone in the tower, including myself. Like, I was just miserable. So yeah, this one isn't great, but I think personally for me, the tower's still number one, or episode like last 100, in the ranking of Atlantis episodes.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. Because I feel like the episode was like, while I was watching it, was worse than I remembered. My brain deleted all the terrible things from this episode and just like latched onto the really fun things about it. And then when I rewatched it, I was like, oh, yeah, that also happened.
Yeah, I don't know. I think because there are some people, like Sam, I think like before we started this episode, you were always like, oh, I like this episode, it's funny, or like, I don't know, but it was like you kind of liked it, and I know other friends of mine also like it. And I was like, oh, okay, maybe it isn't so bad. And then I watched it, I was like, I don't like anything about it. Like, I think my second favorite scene is probably like the first, like the cold opening, and my favorite scene is the last scene, in which they are all sobered up.
Yeah.
And everything in between, it's just, ugh, ew, gross, stop, no, please. And I don't think there's anything redeeming about it. I think that's my issue with it, why I dislike it so much. Because...
Does it move the plot forward at all?
No, but I'm not bothered by that usually. I feel like there are episodes like in general, episodes can be done where people behave out of character and it's still in a way in character or like funny in a way. But in this episode, I just didn't see it. I didn't think it was funny. I just found it like really, because like for example, like this is not really, but it like kind of it goes into the direction of like sex poem episodes, right? Luckily we don't see anything like explicit or like any like even any mention like in regards to like Lucius and like the Atlantis team, luckily. But I feel like in this, or like there are like episodes where it was like inhibitions are lowered by like a mysterious substance, and that's the case here. But not really, because he's just straight up brainwashing everyone. Like there, I don't feel like the way he changes them is like changing them into like a I don't know, funnier, more open. Or like yeah, he not only like lowers their inhibitions, but he changes all of their characters like completely. Because like you can't tell me that Elizabeth would cook for him. Oh, I just remembered that she cooked for Simon. But still. Okay, that's a personal headcanon. But like you can't tell me that Teyla would be like, oh yeah, I'm so sad that I refused him at first. Like there's no part of Teyla that would be like the least bit sad about like refusing Lucius at any point. So he's not like uncovering any underlying desires, anything. He's just brainwashing them. And I think that's what makes this episode so unredeemable for me. Irredeemable.
Again, yes to all of that. I do agree. And I do think again, like this episode, I guess we can just like jump into straight to like the problematic stuff first. I guess we're just gonna go straight into the Lucius part. I think just the way this episode is approached is the problem. Like that's my like I get what they were going for, but I think they just approached it in the wrong way. I feel like this would have been so fun if it was like what Ash was saying, like if it was like bringing out like some sort of hidden desires, covering something that we didn't know about these characters, or even if they wanted to just play into like, oh, they're obsessed with this one man. I think infatuation should have been like as far as it should have gone. I think that's the problem, is that like they go so far into it, right? And it's just like, this is gross. Like it stops being funny, and like I don't think it was ever funny. Like with his whole 6 wives nonsense and all that stuff, like that's just misogynistic and like weird. But like I see like another like an alternate version of this episode where it could have worked. Especially like if all of them were acting like the same level of infatuated. That's another problem with this episode, is that like the women are just so, yeah, like Teyla and Elizabeth become so like ditzy and so like, oh, I'm so in love with him, I have to cook for him. While the boys are like, oh, he's just so cool. Or like Carson is like, they make the joke about like, oh, he's also like ditzy and in love with him, and they like tease him about it. They're like, do you like women? And all this stuff, right? Which is like, ugh, weird. But I just feel like it would have been funny if they were all same level of infatuated. Like if they were treated equally, because they're not.
And I agree when you say that there is an inequality in the way that the drink is making people of different genders behave, which is questionable. And the questionableness starts and it just doesn't stop, unfortunately. Like, the wives thing was a lot. And I feel like at least they stopped, they didn't go so far as to have, like, our main cast have anything done to them or whatever. But the part where, like, John goes back to the planet and, everyone's very sad that Lucius is not there anymore. And just knowing that line that the village girl says, just knowing that she, like, had to sleep with this man under this influence, like, this duress, is just so fucked up. And it's, like, played for laughs, like it's supposed to be funny, but I just felt terrible for her the whole time. And then there was another scene that was so bizarre, that was basically, like, they might as well have just said the R slur. I believe it was the brain damage scene. Like, what? It really made me realize that this show was made in the early 2000s. Like, that shit just would not fly today on air. I hope, because it was just a lot, in my opinion. It went a little far, and was not humorous.
Well, since we're just like on the disgusting train right now, but there's two lines specifically that made me want to gouge out their eyes, and the first one was what Ash mentioned earlier, which is that Elizabeth made food for Lucius. I don't really need to discuss that. That just fucking sucks. That just fucking sucks. And they would never make a man do that. Like the leader of Atlantis, they would never make a man do that. And then the second one, which was like, this was the worst for me. This was like, I'm going, because I think for most of the episode, I think you can kind of like, I don't want to say you can brush it off, but like it's not brought up entirely. The sexual assault, I mean, it is like talked about briefly, but it's not gone into as much detail as it is in this last fucking scene. When skipping to the end of the episode, John's in the prison talking to Lucius, and John's like, I think accusing him of all these things, and Lucius goes, I'm a nice guy. I didn't make them do anything they didn't want to. And then he makes a joke, 6 wives, all at the same time sometimes. And that's when I wanted to strangle so many people. Because I just think all of those 3, that's like the disgusting trifecta. Like, just some of the worst things I've ever heard in my life. And I just feel like that part was just so unnecessary. Like, you can kind of, again, like, early in the episode, you can just kind of, like, brush it off. And, like, it's not, like, I guess as directly brought up, and I feel you can like maybe again it's uncomfortable, but it's like whatever, it's the back of your mind. But then to have that scene where John fully brings up like, hey, you've been doing these women, and he's just like, oh well, I'm a nice guy, I didn't make them want to do anything they didn't do, and yeah, I sometimes sleep with all 6 of them at the same time. Like the rage I have in my little body right now is just like crazy.
Yeah. That's definitely one of the worst things he could have said, and it's what makes this episode so disgusting to me, because like what you said, he said like, oh, I'm a nice guy, and he's just lying. He is making them do things that they don't want. He's just like, he doesn't see that because and he's brainwashing them or whatever like the substance is doing. It's you don't know what they want because you never allow them to like be who they are and say what they think, like really think, because you're taking that away from them because you are drugging them. And then like we had that, like he mentioned that or before he discovered that nobody liked him, and it's like, oh, I wonder why. Yeah, no, fuck you, fuck Lucius and like the writers and who thought this was funny.
Honestly, they should have let John do more. Like, give John a gun and let him use it, because by the end of the episode, I feel like he could have. He was ready. Yeah, it was just like the one redeeming quality of this episode was John. For me personally, I enjoyed all of that. That was great. But I really should have. I thought they should have taken it a little bit further, and let him execute that man. But anyways, that's just me.
At least punch him, right? Like,
something
in the face with a chair, maybe, or a jumper.
Well, his wife should have all.
Oh yeah,
all fucking killed him. They
absolutely.
The village should have stoned at him.
Yeah.
I mean, I also don't mind like a John punch. I do love I don't know if we're gonna jump right into characters already, but I do just really love how progressively more upset John got throughout the episode. Like, he was just so fucking fed up with this entire situation, and so by the end, when he's like talking to Carson and just everything about it, it's kind of comedy gold.
Like, and he's sick on on top of all of that. So he's sick. He's dragging himself to work, and then he has to deal with that shit. I think this is a little bit mean to say, maybe, but I think this is the most that I ever liked John.
That's not mean. I love it.
Like,
Great
I haven't
in this
been
episode.
a huge, like, John stan or anything. Like, he's okay to me. I'm sorry. He's a guy.
Valid.
But like in this episode, I really liked him, and I wasn't even mad at him that he like went against Elizabeth, because this is the one time where he's right.
Absolutely.
He was just the last times he was just practicing for this time. For when he got like real.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, this whole episode was great, culminating in that last scene with Beckett in the jumper, for sure. I love the little, like, subtle sniffles and coughs throughout the whole episode, just to kind of remind you that he's congested and none of the stuff is going to work on him. But yeah, that last jumper scene is really great. Even the lead up to it was really funny. Like, John going to the infirmary and being like, I think something's wrong with me, to Carson made me laugh so hard, because there is something wrong with him, but that's not what we're talking about right now. And it's just funny that the best John Carson scene is in the worst episode of all time, or the second worst episode of all time. But just the comedic timing of everything. Like John's imploring eyebrows during that long pause when he's waiting for Beckett to say yes. And then John's reaction when Beckett starts crying is amazing as well. The punch on the arm, just everything. It was everything.
Yes. I truly think too, I know Joe's talked about like how he prefers like Atlantis to be more of like an action-y, adventure type show, which is like, okay, fair. And I like that Atlantis is different from SG-1, and it is, more focused on like, I don't want to say serious storytelling, but like action and all that stuff, right? But I just think Joe's like comedic timing is just so underrated and just like so integral to like the character of John, that he just like brings it out, not even just like in this episode, but just like in every episode. Like, we always like laugh at like the little behind the, not behind the scenes, but like the little movement he makes or whatever. Like, he's just so great at doing comedy. And yeah, his delivery of "Buck up, Carson" lives in my mind rent free. It's so funny. Still, "Buck up, Carson," like just the way he enunciates it. I don't know. I fucking love that line so much.
That was so funny, and also he looked so shocked when Carson started crying. Actually, he was like, what the fuck am I supposed to do with that?
John being confronted with a human emotion.
Yeah, exactly.
I love seeing like John's like slow descent into like madness / like just rage. I also just would have loved, I know we can't do that because he's the main character and he's supposed to be like the suave one, but I just think John Smitten would have, I don't know, given me like 10 plus years of my life. I think
True.
John also in love with Lucius is just...
Well, see, they kind of gave us a little bit of a sneak peek at the end there, which was, that was pretty funny. I'll admit that was okay for me.
Rodney's just making John do like harmless shit, like clean his room. Like, it's like, that's funny because it's like harmless.
Yeah, that was cute. I enjoyed that.
Do we know how long Lucius has been on like Atlantis?
Ooh, that's a good question.
I don't think we know like officially. However, my guess would be like 7 days, like tops. Like, I don't think it'd be 7, but like, something like definitely less than a week, I'd say.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was thinking, because like we were talking about John, I was like, I know he's sick in this episode, and that's why he doesn't catch anything in regards to Lucius. But I also thought it would be fun. Like, it could be also seen as like another point towards like the asexual John agenda, which I think I'm partial of.
Me too.
Which is also like would explain like his it's just like exasperation with like the rest of the team and like the rest of the the whole base, because it's just like, what the fuck is wrong with you people? Why? Like he just it doesn't make any sense like on any level. I mean, a cold can be gone within a week, so
yeah, I agree.
could be that like towards the end he could have slowly, but no, he stayed strong.
He never sees it coming, so
Yeah.
there you go. Yeah, I as much as I would have loved to see John in infatuation mode and lose his cool a little bit, I do agree. I feel like he's the best character to just not give a fuck about Lucius, because he's just so he never does about any sort of love interest. He's so like ace about it all the time. Yeah, even the scene directly before that, with Rodney, when John comes back and he sees Rodney in the like Elizabeth's office, in the gate room, talking to Lucius, and he like stomps up the stairs, and his face when Rodney says Ronan held him against the wall, I die every time. He's like so shocked and appalled.
I was gonna say, I was like, Ronan held Rodney against the wall. I would like to see it. Give me the footage.
Exactly.
Yeah. I wonder what really turned him like partial towards Lucius. Was it Lucius, or is Ronan just really, really convincing?
Yeah, but that entire scene too of like Rodney doing like a fucking, I don't, like almost like a handstand on the floor, and John just like get up almost, like he's just staring at him.
It was giving like when your friend is really into their loser boyfriend, is describing all of their great qualities, or like trying to tell you a funny story about them, and you're like, girl, get up. That's what John was giving.
Break up with him right now. Yeah. Speaking of Ronan though, I actually, we've been complaining, well, we always complain about like the lack of like Jason Momoa and like the lack of Teyla, of course, but there's one scene that I think is just such an underrated John and Ronan moment. It's when Carson comes in, and like Carson and Teyla, Ronan come in from the planet, and John goes to like move and I think like grab the herbs or whatever, and Ronan pulls out the gun on John. And I think that's the moment where John's like, everything snaps into place, like, oh shit, like, the brainwashing like goes that far. And I don't know why that little tiny moment would be like weirdly emotional, because I was like, that's when because Ronan would never.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that scene was really powerful, because I think I had the same thought process as John, that like Ronan would never do that to John. And I think it kind of shows how far they've come, in terms of like loyalty, friendship, camaraderie, whatever. Also just how well like John knows Ronan at this point, that he like knows how he acts in like certain situations, and how he usually doesn't act. Like he doesn't pull out the gun out on his friends normally.
Yeah, again, because we're on the topic of Ronan, I just love how you can tell Jason Momoa is having just like a fucking blast. It's just so refreshing to like see, again, like Ronan is underused in this episode, whatever, but it's just nice to see him like smile and like be like, more of like a quote unquote like human, instead of like his very like more like stoic like bodyguard type persona. Like seeing him smile and like nod at like the fucking gourd or like the candle in that one scene cracks me up. And just like whenever Lucius is telling a story and like you just see his big smile and he's like, wow, that's so cool. Like, I don't know, it reminds you, I think, of how young Ronan technically is, and like how young he was when like his whole life was like obliterated. And so again, weird episode, but it's like these little moments and I'm like, I can't help but like love that we just get happy Ronan.
Yeah, it's so sad that we have to see it, like, we only get to see it under the influence of, like, Lucius's influence,
Seriously.
quote unquote. But I do think that you get, like, a little peek into his, like, sense of, his curiosity, his wonder in the beginning of the episode when, he actually asks Rodney about his gate system. I thought that was so cute that he wanted to know how it worked and, like, what they were going to do with all the gates once they collected them. Like, that was really cool.
It was so sweet. I feel like he knew, like, he was indulging Rodney, but, like, he did it because he likes him and because he likes him to be, like, excited about stuff. And, yeah, he's maybe also curious about, like, the whole... What is it called? Like the gateway? No. Like the midway system, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was really, really sweet. It was genuine, but I think also, like, he knew what he was doing. Like.
Oh, yeah. Like a pacifier, for sure.
Speaking of, so, okay. I kind of hate that, like, they developed this, like, whole fucking, like, gay idea off screen. Because I didn't remember that they just did that, like, off the bat. I thought it was, like, more of, like, they just threw this, like, huge altering, life-altering decision on screen and just expected us to be okay with it. Okay. And then I think this episode is technically supposed to be right after the Pegasus project from season 10 of SG-1. So I think they use that to be like, oh, well, we talked about it with Sam after she came, and it was like, we didn't see that. And so I kind of hated the telling, not showing.
Oh,
I didn't put that together. They talk about it in the Pegasus project?
No, they don't. That's why I'm, like, upset. Like, I think it's supposed to just saying, like, oh, we did it off screen, or...
Yeah, and it's weird because, like, it sounds a little bit like they've been on it for, like, a few weeks now with, like, collecting gates and all that, with Rodney's quota. So it was a bit strange to have that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like what an episode to drop this new cool mission in, like, right at the start, and then have this dumbness happening around it, you know?
Yeah, it completely throws them off their schedule.
Yeah. What about Rodney's quota? Even Elizabeth was concerned.
Quota.
Yeah, I get... Although, okay. No, I was going to complain about this, but no, I think that's okay. Because I remember that, I don't think they start technically using the gate or, like, the midway thing till season 4, I think, a lot more. So, I'll give them that at least they kind of, like, set it up before they actively started using it. So it's, like, properly built up. I just wish it was, like, maybe talked about a little more or something. It kind of just feels a little just out of fucking nowhere.
Oh, yeah, I think they use
I'm
it
okay with it, actually.
in the return, too, for the mid-season. To, like, get back to Pegasus, I think.
Right.
Yeah, I think they do, but, like, the midway station doesn't exist yet.
Yeah, it's not ready.
That's why they have to use the jumper. But I mean, it's still like well, not exactly, but like 8 episodes until then. So I think it's okay. I think there is enough time for it to, like, happen and them to build it. But I was really embedded into this episode. I think that's my thing. And the fact that it didn't come up. Like, sometimes they did a really good job with, like, easing new technology in. Like, I don't know, with the, I don't know why I'm thinking of the long-range sensors. But it's something they discovered. And then they figured out how to use it. And then it, like, played into, like, yes, it's kind of similar here. But yeah, I think just, like, in context of this episode, it was just strange. But also it's funny that, like, in the first season, or was it first season? Yeah, they're constantly looking for, like, ZPMs. now they're looking for Stargate, so they have always a little quest that they have to fulfill.
Although, yeah, but I also feel like, I don't know, like ZPMs felt so like important and like it was like rooted to like, yeah, their fucking like their survival, and it was like given like a lot of weight, and you can kind of see like, oh my gosh, if they don't get the ZPMs, like they are screwed. While I feel like them getting gates isn't as like tension's just non-existent. I also, to be honest, I am excited to like rewatch it and see if they actually like bring this up as often as they used to bring up like the ZPM. So I feel like season 1 of the episodes were always like, oh my god, ZPM. It was like, we need to get the ZPM. But now I'm like, I don't remember them going to get the gates like as much.
Yeah, no, me neither. It is a little bit of a luxury problem.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that, well, I guess it'd take shorter time, and that's why. Because they have the Daedalus, but I guess it's good to have a contingency plan in case, like, something happens to the ship, or it does take a while, I think, for the Daedalus to go back and forth as well. So this way they have the opportunity. But yeah, I guess that'll be something that we keep in mind as we watch more episodes, like if they're collecting gates for this first half of the season at all.
I feel like it's also like the whole, I don't know, like them saying, hey, look what we can do. And they're just happy that they can like devise such a system and then make it work. Well, I guess that's cool because it's like in the spirit of like technological advancement, maybe.
That's true. I feel like it's a very Rodney and Sam thing to like just do something because we can, and the fact that it makes life easier is kind of just a bonus.
Yeah.
In the face of like scientific discovery and innovation, for sure. That's true.
Yeah. And it's really nice that Rodney actually gives credit to Sam.
Yes.
Like he does it begrudgingly, but he does. He does.
That was great. I thought it was so cute that Teyla was like, you know, trying to compliment him, like pat him on the head, be like, oh, good job. That's very clever. And then Rodney's like, well, actually.
Yeah, they had some cute little scenes, Teyla and Rodney. There's that one, and there's that really there's that funny one at the end where just Rodney's giving her like a look when he slides by her and Ronan, where I was like, what is this look? What is this vibe that you're going for? But I also think something that I just found so hilarious is that when Lucius was flirting with Teyla in the beginning, like at the village and stuff, that even Rodney was getting uncomfortable. Like, that's when you know it's bad. If Rodney is getting uncomfortable, like, then you know that you are just completely missing the mark.
Yeah, it was bad.
And I do love that the boys were not, like, gagging to defend Teyla's honor. They just kind of, like, gave each other a look that was like, oh, he's in for it now. Because she's going to give him what for.
They were just very unimpressed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was not having it, like, at all. And I love that at some point, I think Lucius asked John something about Teyla, and she, like, I think before John can even say anything, she cuts in and was like, no one speaks for me. And it was like, oh,
yes.
Yeah. Yes. Good. Yes, excellent. And about that last scene, like the last scene of the episode when where Rodney gives her the look, I was like, I just started like liking this one scene, and now you're ruining it, because like it was when I think they say, that they're gonna search Rodney's quarters to see if like he has anything of that herb or like that liquid left there. Yeah. And that's when he gives Rachel, oh my god. That's when he gives Teyla that look. I'm like, Rodney, what the fuck? What the absolute fuck is going on in your mind? Hated that. Absolutely hated that.
Yeah, they ruined that.
Yeah. It was so unnecessary. Oh my god, I ripped out my headphones because I was so angry.
Okay, so skip ahead. We also have a recurring cast member who is in SGU, who we know and love as Vanessa James. Love her. So in this episode, I'm just be calling her Vanessa James because she's like the tragic version, the alt version. I love her and everything. I feel so bad that she had to be in this episode first. Queen, I am so sorry.
Terrible introduction to the universe.
Seriously. But I love that scene of where, so the team is on the village in the beginning of the episode. And, you know, they all get like dragged in for lunch or whatever. And Vanessa grabs Rodney's arm. And she's the one who drags him to the table. And I was like, oh my God, wait, what? Because then in SGU, Vanessa actually meets Rodney, I think. And she actually even jokes or, you know, makes a comment, says, Rodney was like really creepy and like was always staring at her boobs. And I was like, obviously weird. But I was like, why is this like the prequel? Is this like what happened?
I love that idea. Maybe
Yeah.
maybe they like recruited her to like the SGC and
Ooh.
I think she has a name in this episode, but maybe she just rebranded and was like, nah.
Yeah. They were like, hey, do you want to like kill aliens? And she was like, are you kidding me? Fuck yeah. They're like, are you tired of being a housewife? And she was like, hell yeah.
Yup.
And they just dragged her to Earth, and then she became the badass woman she is. And then she discovered that she was actually a lesbian.
Yeah,
Yeah, that too.
Perfect. Maybe she even like we don't know what she did before she met Lucius, so maybe she even had like training somehow, or was like, I don't know. It's a pretty like a basic alien, not very advanced culture in the Stargate universe. But maybe they had like a little bit of, I don't know, security or I don't know. So she could build on that in the SGC. They saw her potential.
Yes. Oh, another really great, because I think we're just kind of like going from character to character. I fucking love that scene at the end when Teyla and Ronan and Rodney all go and they like, you know, capture John, whatever. And Ronan like stuns him, or he's like, that's a stun or whatever, and then he gets stunned. And Rodney's very upset because they have to carry John back to the jumper.
That was great. I love how they sort of played it off like he was so concerned about his safety, and then he was like, I don't want to have to carry him.
It's like these little moments like that where I'm like, ugh, I love this episode. And then it's like, ugh, everything else. But it's like the little nuggets just crack me up. Also, I love the 1960s Batman scene.
Oh yeah, it's everything.
It's like their first time where they like, I think, discuss like movies and stuff. I believe that becomes definitely like a thing later on. And I also love Rodney's, he gets upset that John's like gonna leave him, and he's like, you're gonna leave me alone? And I wanted to scream at John. I was like, John, I was like, this is horror movie rules. It's like, do not leave him. Like, what do you mean? You never split up in a horror movie.
Exactly. He had a little too much confidence in Rodney being able to basement dwell perpetually. He underestimated Ronan's suaveness. Or persuasiveness, I should say.
Is this technically a Carson episode?
Oh no! Oh god.
I feel like it's split between like John, Carson, and team, sort of. And Carson definitely stands out a little bit more. And he doesn't commit any war crimes here.
Shockingly.
No war crimes. That's crazy. Why do I feel like this is like the episode where we get like, I don't know, like we learn a lot about Carson weirdly. I don't know. I feel like I was like, wait a minute. why am I kind of understanding his character more in this episode?
Oh, really?
A little. I just feel like seeing him sort of, you get that scene of him going to the village and like you see him sort of like negotiating with Lucius and you're like, oh, okay, like he's a little uncomfortable and kind of like trying to be nice, but also just being like, no, we don't want any of like your garbage shit. And then when he goes to eat lunch, and then he's completely like fallen in love by that point. And then when he starts crying, I don't know, just like maybe for me this was just like a really enjoyable episode, I think, for Carson, and that I really enjoyed. I think because usually we're on here, like talking about like his fucking war crimes and stuff, and it's just like his inability to sort of like pick which side he wants to stand on versus like the wraith and the human stuff, and just like his hand and all the icky business. And so I feel like here I'm like, oh my god, wait, no, yeah, like you. Like, he's just, like, a sensitive guy. Like, he's just... Yeah, that scene at the end, too, when John's teasing Carson and Elizabeth is just so great. And just Carson being, like, so embarrassed. It's kind of that, like, he really, like, was so in love with Lucius. Just cracks me up. It's cute.
It kills me, but it also feels so in character that Rodney is laughing along with John in that scene because, like... Rodney, you were just as down bad for Lucius as everybody else. I don't know why you're smiling so much.
Exactly. Actually, side note, really, I wanted to mention this earlier, but I mean, when Ash was talking about like the sex pollen type of episode that this is, I was just thinking about like all, different shows that have also incorporated like that type of episode and like how they've like managed to like not make it so fucking weird. And I just can't help but go back to the Deep Space Nine episode. I don't remember, season 3. It's for this, you haven't watched Deep Space Nine, it's not a big spoiler, but it's just an episode where there's a telepath on board, I think the station, and she's going through menopause. Basically, like every time like she gets a headache or whatever, she like causes like the other like crew members to like basically like fall in love with like whoever they see first or whatever.
Oh no.
Or just like whoever's nearby. But it's so, I think that's just like the perfect episode. You just have to base it off of that. Like I don't know, Stargate is always copying Star Trek, so why didn't they copy this episode? I don't fucking know. They didn't do it right. Like they copied the homework wrong. Copied the right homework. Because I think what's so funny about that episode and how it works is that like pairings almost, like you would never see, like Jadzia goes after Cisco and they're like best friends. Like there's nothing going on between it. It's totally platonic. But seeing Jadzia like be in love with Cisco and him being so confused and being like, I need to take her to the infirmary, like something's wrong. Right? And then Quark falling in love with like O'Brien's wife, and it's like, wait, what? This would never happen and stuff. And I think again, it just makes it so fun because it's the crew falling in love with each other, but like a different type of love. Obviously they have love for each other, but it's like it's all cross, everything's mixed matched, right? And the most important part is there's a scene where Kira and Julian are just like constantly making out with each other like the entire episode, and it's like they would never do that if they weren't under this telepaths control thing or like accidental hormones thing. And there's a scene where Julian's like, oh yeah, I gotta finish this thing, like my work, so I can go to Kira's room. We're gonna hook up. And Cisco like stops him and he like puts a hand on him and he's like on his shoulder and he's like, no, he's like, you're not gonna go up there. He's like, you're gonna wait till tomorrow because that's when like it's supposed to like wear off or whatever. And so snapping fingers, clapping, thank you DS9 Miners. That is such a simple like way to not make the episode fucking creepy. Is like no one's like having sex or hooking up. Like the most they do is like make out with each other, which is like, okay, yeah, harmless, whatever. And I think the reason why those two characters make out, Kira and Julian, is because the actors were together at that time. So 100% they were just like, yeah, we can make out, that's fine. And so no issues there. But yeah, they stop it from going any further because they know that's fucking weird and it'll take out the fun.
Yeah, I guess it's in this episode it's also one-sided and it's also focused on like Lucius and the fun. one of the funny things about the DS9 episode is that, I think he said, like, it's all mismatched. No, what did he say? Whatever. So everyone is in love with someone, but it's rarely mutual, and that's kind of where the fun is, because like one person is just constantly confused and trying to get the other one off of them. And yeah, it doesn't go like too far. Like, I think Cisco is pretty uncomfortable sometimes with like Jitsia because of like their friendship, but yeah, it's not. Yeah, and here it's just like, it's just Lucius, and he's a fucking dick about it.
Yeah. It just went too far.
I keep thinking that he asked both. So he definitely talked to like Elizabeth like outwardly like about marriage, and also to Teyla, and it just
Yeah. Well, speaking of the girls, let's go into the girls, because this is where the problems really arise. Yeah, Taylor in the beginning is so fucking funny when he's like flirting with her, and I think he says something like, "Oh, where are you from?" or whatever, and she's like, "Oh, you know, my people are Arthosian or whatever." And he was like, "Oh, how's that planet? Like, is it nice?" And he's just like totally flirt, and her deadpan response cracks me up, and she was like, "Yeah, it was nice until the race showed up." And she's just like,
Queen.
yeah, it's amazing. She has like the best annoyed look. Like I don't know if he himself is high or whatever, but like or if he just doesn't see it, like how annoying he is to people who he hasn't drugged yet. But the fact that she's just like he said like 2 words to her, and she was like, no, fuck that guy. Not in that way.
Yeah, I felt a little bit vindicated by the end of the episode. I felt like when they sort of let the village people have their revenge on Lucius, it felt fair, considering they were under his control for the longer period of time. And I do like Ronan's like, well, just cut off his junk if he gets any ideas. Like, that was great. I really appreciated that.
yeah.
Wait, I think I missed that. What?
You missed that part?
Maybe?
Yeah.
I don't remember.
So right at the end, let me pull up the script just so I say verbatim what he said. Right, so they just are explaining what they did to Lucius. They just brought him back to the planet, and Elizabeth was kind of like asking how they received him. And John was like, well, they didn't kill him, but lots of divorce in his future. And so they were concerned about Lucius telling other people about Atlantis, because they brought him to Atlantis and they told him about puddle jumpers, and they told him all about this technology, like what they're going to do with the gates, with the midway. And Ronan was like, if he spills, I would track him down, hang him by his feet, and cut off his. And then Elizabeth was like, thank you, we get it. You know how to say. That's all right.
Oh my god, I love that. Because she knows he would do that.
Yeah.
Like, he would.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If she let him.
And it's even better because after she's like, thanks, Teyla kind of gives Ronan a look. And he kind of just shrugs and smirks at her like, well.
They're all idiots, Your Honor.
Yeah, they're cute.
But, you know, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, I was looking back at my notes and stuff, and I was like, damn, Teyla doesn't really even do anything. All she does is get hit on.
Yep.
And she turns him down, and it's good, and then she just gets
sucked in.
You know, all sad about not being a wife.
That's really it, isn't it?
That is really unfortunate. And even like Elizabeth too. Like she just like kind of is uncomfortable in the beginning and like doesn't want him there
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I think I'm probably reading too much into this again, but like when Elizabeth and Carson talk about like in her office about like Lucius, and she's too trusting because like she trusts Carson and she doesn't know yet that he's like drugged or like under Lucius spell. But Carson is so sure and so convinced, and she trusts her team and him that she trusts Lucius, like she trusts Carson to like meet with Lucius, and that's when. And again, Lucius, please just stop fucking touching people and especially women, because I think you're mostly touching women. Just stop. Just stop.
Yeah, I agree. On both counts. I like how you mentioned that about Elizabeth too, because I feel like it's like the best character flaw of hers, because she just like it makes you love her more, even though it's not good. Because we've seen it with like the Wraith, like the gene therapy, or not the gene therapy, the retrovirus, and how she was just kind of saying yes to all these things and didn't go great. So I like that that's a continuing thread of hers in terms of character. And even in this episode where a lot of things were not in character, at least her one moment of lucidity was very much her. But on that point, I feel like John got all this comedic stuff throughout the episode, and I feel like even Carson got all this comedic stuff, and it sucks that in an episode where we could have had a really fun comedic stuff coming from Elizabeth and Teyla, it's so, you can't laugh at their scenes, like it's just not funny, it's just uncomfortable. So like you were mentioning, Sam, I kind of wish that they found a way to do this in a way that it could have been humorous, and they could have stretched those comedy muscles a little bit and had a little bit of fun in the episode. But instead it was just uncomfy.
And yeah, I think I still love Tori and Rachel's facial expressions in this episode, just because we barely ever get, especially Elizabeth, like scenes of her like just being sort of like happy and sort of just like uninhibited. You know, a lot of the time she's very like just like stoic almost, or like not stoic, but you know, she's just like has to be more serious. And so as an editor, I love this episode. Is just gold character because it's just so unique and something that we don't get from the show ever. And especially like Elizabeth, you know, there's just so many like scenes of her, like her hair is like really like wild. She's like a curl or like something like closer to her eyes. So it's just like fun. But yeah, I definitely have to mute those scenes if, you know, if I'm grabbing them or if I'm using them from edit. Like I would never use the actual dialogue because the actual dialogue is like misogynistic as hell. I'm being like, yeah, let's get married. Let's, you know, you'll be my 8th wife. So it's like, ugh. But from like a visual point, I'm like, yay, everyone's happy. And like the camera movements are so fun. I fucking love that scene of Mick Shep versus the team. And John's like, you guys are Stepford wives. And it just, the camera just moves over to John in a really quick way. And it's very like sitcom-esque. And it's something that the show, you know, doesn't really do. And they actually talked about it in the behind the scenes, which I'm definitely going to mention again. But they talked about how they actually tried to film this episode differently than how they usually do, and they tried to do like less like serious close-ups, and they tried to go for like more of a comedic route, and I think you can really see that in some of the filmmaking. And so as I think what's so hard for me about this episode is it's so different and offers us such like a unique perspective or just like a unique experience. But yeah, the girls deserve better is basically what this episode is.
Yeah, I'm totally with you there with the visual stuff. I think it might be the only time that we see Elizabeth actually laughing, not just smiling, but actually laughing. I'm not sure we ever see that anywhere else. Because like I've been doing like Elizabeth Weir Daily for over a year now, where I just like post mostly like screen caps of Elizabeth on Tumblr every day. And I noticed that she does smile a lot more than I initially thought, but she never laughs. And I'm like 99% sure that this is the only time that she actually laughs. And I think for Teyla it's a little bit different. She also laughs in this episode, but she laughs elsewhere as well. And it makes this even harder for me, like to like, because obviously I want to see my characters happy and laughing and having fun and like forgetting like all the trauma and all the shit that's going on for like a while, but not in this way. This is not how I want them to be happy. This is so I think for me it's just it's really, really hard to like black out all the like disgusting background stuff. I think maybe I should like try editing some of the scenes like without the dialogue and the audio. I just like focus on the visual. Maybe that would help actually, because like right now I can't forget like why the characters look happy. I think that always just influences like my how I see those clips.
And now we can head over to Ash for the Bechdel test. Which I'm all nervous about.
Do you want to guess?
Yeah, fail.
Yeah. Yay!
Fail.
Correct. Who's surprised that like one of the most misogynistic episodes in Stargate doesn't pass the Bechdel test?
Well, then this part, which is back to me for the behind the scenes, might be surprising, might not. Just depends, I guess. Because this episode was directed by Martin Wood, classic Stargate guy. The story was written by Brad Wright and Robert C. Cooper, classic Stargate guys. And
What
the
happened?
teleplay was by Carl Binder. Classic Stargate.
Guys.
What happened?
The most shocking thing of all is that Joe Malazzi was not a part, or not like a major part of this. That's crazy. That is crazy.
The shade. But that's so true.
Let's just hope they learn from this.
Well, yeah, my notes are gonna be really upsetting today. Behind the scenes info, because we're actually gonna head straight to something that Joe Malazzi posted on his blog.
Oh.
And when I first read this, I thought I was kind of just stunned. I really had no idea what to say. And if this had happened, this would have easily been the worst Stargate episode ever.
Oh God.
Okay, I don't
I'm
think
scared.
Irresistible is as bad as that one SG1 episode with that one was like with Sam and like that early on. That one was like worse in my opinion. I can never watch that episode. No, the other one, is it like the third episode? I think it is.
Oh yeah. Emancipated?
Wait, which one?
That one's 100 times worse.
Oh,
Emancipated.
Oh God.
Yeah, that one's like way worse. I think just not even for like the sexism, but also like the racism, like the weird. So that one's worse. I was like, is that the right word? I was like, cultural something was also. Yeah. Anyways, yeah. So that one's the worst one for sure. But if this would have gone through, this would have been the worst episode. So, according to Joe Malazzi, An early title for this episode was Delicious Fat Guy, because their intention was to cast a much larger man, roughly over 200 pounds, to play the role of Lucius. So not only were they going to go full-blown, sexist, misogyny, they also wanted to add fat phobia.
Yeah, like, that would make the situation any more or less worse. Like, what?
Because it was, did you guys get it? Haha. Wouldn't it be funny? Because it's a fat guy and no woman would want to sleep with a fat guy, let alone 6 women. Ha ha ha. Isn't that funny?
Oh my god.
I wonder what made them go against it in the end.
I assume it was a casting thing.
Yeah. Because it definitely wasn't, oh no, maybe we shouldn't be fatphobic thing.
Oh, definitely not that. It was definitely not that.
My thing is I just kind of assume maybe that, like, they weren't, I don't know if maybe they found someone, or maybe they just, like, eventually thought of calling up this actor who they obviously were familiar with because he did work on, he was in the Star movie. So it could have just been that, and they could have reached out to him with the part and then gone from there. I don't know, but so these next ones I'll just run through really quickly because this is something that I actually mentioned a lot of this while we were talking through the episode. But yeah, so this is the first mention of the McKay-Carter intergalactic gate bridge, and it is thought that Carter brought this idea up to Atlantis in the SG-1 episode, The Pegasus Project, which indicates this episode takes place after. Also, this episode marks the first time that John and Rodney trade trivia about old TV shows, which is something that they do a lot in later seasons. This is the first time, surprisingly. So once again, the Stargate writers are stealing, copying from Star Trek, but they couldn't even copy the good episode that we were talking about in Deep Space Nine. They had to copy an episode from TOS, which is famously problematic as well. Because apparently Lucius Lavin is, once again, similar to Harry Mudd in Star Trek.
Oh.
I didn't even make that connection, and it makes it worse.
So apparently Lucius Lavin's name is either a reference to the names of various Bond girls, or it's referencing a real-life white-collar drug dealer. Who was named Larry Lavin. So pick your poison. Love that for us. Director Martin Wood filmed this episode in the style of a 3-camera sitcom with looser shots and no tight close-ups. The Pegasus Project was also broadcasted on the same day, actually, which was July 28, 2006. And I have some quotes here that we are not going to love.
Oh no.
I think the last one's the worst one, but I have a quote from Brad Wright in an interview with Gateworld, and he says, "We wanted to do a fun one because Atlantis hasn't done that in the same degree that SG-1 has been able to do over the years. It was this idea of a character who was essentially, literally, an addictive personality. It was this idea that Robert had, and Carl and I spun into an episode called Irresistible."
What?
But see, they mentioned that in the episode as well, that he has like an addictive personality, right? I think.
Yeah, they did.
Like you could have gone that way in a different way. Like you could have made it not weird, but you chose to make it weird, like the weirdest.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Also, like you were saying earlier, Ash, it doesn't even feel like he has an addictive personality. It just feels like brainwashing.
Yeah.
Or I feel like it could have just been like more of like they need to be around him because like he's so fun or whatever, like because they like his stories or whatever, to the point where maybe like they neglect everything, even like eating or something. Like it could have been like something like that where like
it could have been his voice or whatever.
Yeah.
Or they even could have made him like charming, like actually charming. Or he's such a chameleon that he could be whoever that person wanted him to be. And that was what made him so desirable, because he would like say the right things for that one particular person. You know what I mean? Anything better than what they landed on.
Next up is something I also already mentioned, but I just want to bring it up again, because it is a quote from Joe Flanagan in an interview with Starburst magazine, and he said, "I really enjoyed Irresistible. It's nice to do a lighter episode every now and then. Although, as I just talked about, I tend to lean towards a somewhat darker tone for the series while still maintaining its sense of fun. That story was more outright humor and a blast to do."
For him.
At least they had fun.
Yeah.
Shooting it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I saw something about Rachel as well, that she was like, yeah, we had fun doing it. So yeah, whatever. They maybe enjoyed it. Or they didn't find it maybe as revolting as we did, but that's cool.
As long as it wasn't torturous for them.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the director, Martin Wood, offering a quote that I wrote down, "We're gonna kill you, dog." Oh, let me read out this quote. Quote, "I know there was a concern from certain fans that Lucius is drugging these people, but that's not in the spirit of the series. This isn't about date rape or anything like that. That's not what it's pretending to be. Irresistible is meant to be fun. And if you take it and make it something else by applying current social morals to it, then it gets too easy to do that with everything else. This episode is about a guy who is completely irresistible for very selfish reasons, but certainly not nefarious ones. He doesn't do it to be a villain, and that's the story we told."
Oh.
How? That is such a lie. Wow, just lying through your teeth.
Did he, like, did you read the script and, like, see what was happening in front of the camera? Did you see, like, the little vial with the clear fluid that Lucius drank constantly, because otherwise he would not have had an addictive personality, because otherwise nobody would have liked him. They say everyone fucking hated him until he started taking a drug, which then made everyone addicted to him. What the fuck are you even saying?
Yeah, and the fact that in the script they made it sexual. So yes, it was pseudo date rape because you said it in the script. These people had no way to consent to getting married and having sex with this guy, and they were. Like, you said it in the script. So, of course we're gonna, quote unquote, conflate it into what it is, because that's what it is. It's not conflating it. That's what you wrote in the script.
What was that about the morals? About the current, like, what?
Yeah, so Irresistible is meant to be fun, and if you take it and make it something else by applying current social morals to it, then it gets too easy to do that with everything else. Like, they just sound ignorant as fuck. Like, reading this interview and, like, this quote or whatever, like, you just sound stupid. Because...
And who are certain fans?
Saying...
I wonder. It just baffles me that he tells us, the fans, not to make this something that it isn't, but, like, completely forgetting what they did in this episode. Because what else are you calling it if not drugging those people? Brainwashing, is that better?
Exactly. And he in that quote, you sound like the villain of your episode. Like, that scene at the end of the episode with Lucius and John, like, you sound like the bad guy. By saying, like, he was just a nice guy, and it wasn't that serious. Like, you sound like a terrible person. So...
Because why are the men getting to act all the same and just sillier and happier, and the women completely lose themselves, basically tearing off their clothes for this man? And you say, not only in this interview, but also in the script in the episode, don't worry, it's not rape, because they wanted it.
Oh boy.
we're gonna literally kill you. I'm gonna find you. I'm going to find you.
Yeah, that's super frustrating.
I'm curious what all of them, like all of the people who worked on the episode, like not only like mostly behind the camera, what they would say about this episode if they watched it again today. Because I truly hope, because I haven't lost all hope yet, that they would say, oh, this isn't funny. But at the same time, I'm scared that they would not say that.
Yeah.
Not to throw like a modern term into this, but I feel like it's such like incel thought process. Really, the idea, like even the original concept for the episode that they wanted to cast this like 200-pound man instead of it being the Lucius that we did get. This preconceived notion or this idea that a man, if he's not the typical physical attractiveness, will not be able to find a partner or find love in life. And it's like, and so they take Lucius's behavior as justified. Like, it's okay for him to be doing that because he just wants companionship, or he just wants, and he's never going to get that because he looks the way he looks. Like, no. Flawed logic. And it just is so... Ugh, I can't.
Not them writing their own insecurities into the script.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah. And on that lovely, lovely note, let's go over to the fic rack. Maybe there's some better alternatives to this episode, so you don't have to waste your time with it.
I'm so glad that was actually the last quote, because I was scared of what would come next.
That was the worst. Save the worst for last.
All right, so for my fic corner, unfortunately, I'm not much one for the non-con fic and the dubious con fic. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to do something a little bit different in this episode, and I'm going to choose a fic based on the cold open. So the cold open, we saw John had the sniffles. He had a cold. So I thought, why don't we do a sick fic rec this week instead and avoid all the weird ickiness. And so I decided to do Canada Likes It on Top by Boo Psycho. It's also very fitting because the weekend we're recording this is Canada Day weekend. So, in this fic, John goes on leave with Rodney to Canada, specifically Alberta, and the winter. And mishaps happen on the frozen ice. And we have some lovely John sick fic, and it's very cute. So enjoy.
Sick fic, my beloved.
Yay! Oh, that sounds so cute. I'm so ready. Thank you so much for that fic rack. I think we will all read that instead of watching this episode ever again. So, I guess we should talk about our ratings for this episode. Who wants to go first?
I can go. So, there is a lot to hate about this episode. The conception of it, the product. Unfortunately, hate the premise, hate the delivery. However, I did really enjoy very minute character acting moments. in and around all of the weird uncomfortableness. And so, despite the terribleness of this episode, I have to give it like a 1 out of 10. A generous 1 out of 10. The 1 being solely for the performance of the actors and nothing else.
Fair. I think I can go. I'll go next. Yeah, because I think going into it, I was obviously the one that didn't hate it as much as you guys. So the behind the scenes, like, it just caused me to hate this episode like a lot more than I would have originally, maybe when I watched it last. But I do think I can't not love the little character moments and the facial expressions of some of the characters that we never get to see be this free. And as like an editor, this is just like a dream come true episode because it's just so different from what we usually get. Again, I love little moments, and I actually think, the cast, considering this is more of like an action-based show, I think the cast did really well, like Tor was saying, like sliding more into this comedy, which is like really fun, and you can tell they're having a fun time, even if the script makes me want to kill someone. I think just that, and then also, getting the expressions, just can't hate this episode. Personally, for me, this is my long goodbye.
Right.
In a way that I'm like, you know what? I know that, like, obviously this is like way worse than the long goodbye, like 10 to 100 times worse. But it's in the long goodbye in the sense that I see its like flaws, but I just can't not love it for some parts. Love it is a strong word. Like, I can't just like not completely, dismiss it. So I think for that, I give it a 3 out of 10.
Ooh.
Okay.
I'm conflicted. Due to Tor's rating, I didn't expect her to go that low.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's fine. I've been hating a lot on this episode. As you might have heard. But I think the kind of opposite thing happened to the tower. Because I think for the tower I saw like tiny little specks of like positivity throughout the episode, but like throughout discussion I was like, okay, no, 0 out of 10. I think the opposite had happened here, because my initial rating was no, burn it, all of it right now. Haha, funny. And I think, okay, I think I'm gonna give it a 2 out of 10, and 1 point goes to John.
Yay, John!
And the other to like the combined little team moments that we had, like mostly in the beginning and then in the end again. But it's a 2 with a bitter taste, I'm gonna say, because I think this episode is the one that makes me the most uncomfortable and the most I wanna throw my laptop out the window and I wanna punch the guy in my laptop so bad. Like Rush appearing on screen.
Yeah.
So, like, I see that there are good parts, tiny little parts, and that's why it gets still 2 points, but I really don't want to rewatch this episode.
Fair.
So fair. I'm just pleasantly surprised you gave it a 2. I'll take it. I think we can safely say these 2 are probably the bottom 2 episodes of Atlantis we've watched so far.
Yep.
And I hate them for very different reasons.
Yeah.
That's also, I think that's also what makes ratings sometimes really hard, because like there are different things that influence like the rating.
Yeah. I also think the more I think about it, the more I actually wish I had ranked Miss Begone lower. Because I actually think if I have to pick top 3 worst episodes, I'm throwing Miss Begone's in there.
Oh, really?
Just because of like the Michael stuff. I just think it makes me so uncomfortable what they did to him again. I feel like that was a really hard watch.
Yeah, and it does feel weird. Like, it feels misplaced, almost.
Yeah, and going from that episode to this episode is just such a, like, ugh.
It's so weird.
Yeah. I think maybe that's why we have such, like, we're giving it, like, little, like, extra sort of, like, maybe love because of the team moments. Because when you think about it, there really hasn't been, like, a good team episode since, like, Inferno. It's been quite a few episodes because everyone's been, you know, split apart, doing, like, the big finale stuff. And so I think it's just nice to have the whole team back together. So I think we're sort of influenced by that, by the structure of it. I feel like if this was maybe placed at a different, maybe like mid-season or something, I don't know if we would feel the same like we do now. Anyways, thanks for sticking through us in this episode. I hope it wasn't too upsetting / serious. Maybe just take some shots and then listen to this episode. Or maybe we should have taken some shots and then talked about this episode.
Yeah.
Every time I go on a rant.
Yeah, that's season 5. That's season 5, baby.
Oh, God. Help us.
Be sure to check out our description box linked down below if you want to check out Tor's Beautiful Fit Greg and also all of our private socials to see what we're up to during the week. And you can also check out the Jumping Puddles socials to keep up with when we upload new episodes. And yeah, thanks for hanging out with us today.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, you clowns, listen up. I don't often get a chance to say this, so savor it. Good work, boys and girls. Let's go home.